Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we have a painting tutorial on Moonlight Midnight Waterfall painting. The season is a little bit spring. There still seems to be some fall leaves up from the previous seasons, slowly blooming to spring. But this is more fantasy, and this is not going off of any kind of picture or painting I've seen. This is just kind of like my imagination running wild. I've already painted this, so you're just gonna follow along through the time lapse. And right now, I'm just gonna explain to you the paints I used, the techniques I used, and the brushes I used. I used a lot of brushes for this painting. I'm just gonna put it right here so you can see it as I'm talking to you. So I used a lot of paint brushes for this painting, but you don't really need to use as many as I did. The only reason why I chose to use so many is because I was trying to use a dry brush, and once you put it in the water, it starts to blend, and then the brush doesn't have that like feathery look once it gets wet with the water. Especially if you're trying to make things look very fluidy in the bushes, you want it to look realistic. Once you add water to the brush, it seems like it kind of like turns into a blob. So I like to use my brushes dry when I'm doing techniques like that. I'm starting to see a tremendous difference in doing that. So I did use quite a few brushes for this. Here's my little cup full of them. I just washed it. It was a mess before. So I used a blending brush mostly for the sky. I didn't need to use it for any more than after I had my paint applied. And this was like the last brush I used for that part, so I'm just gonna put that aside. I'll show you the brushes that I used first before I get into those. So really, this brush is what I started out with first. It's a little wet right now, but you see what I mean. Once the brush is wet, it kind of like, it doesn't give it that flowy look like if you're trying to do branches or anything like that. You would have to let it dry out for a little bit, and then you can fan it out and have those leaves branch out instead of closer together. There's no size on this brush. I just got this at Hobby Lobby, and it's really just a regular, typical brush. So I use this one for the sky. So we'll start out with what I started first. So I use this for the sky. I started out with a violet on top. And then in the middle part, I put Pithania blue. Then towards the bottom, I used a chalk white. You can use any white. I asked my husband to go to the store to grab some white paint and came back with this. This is fine, this will do if you have this. If you have just regular white paint, then just use that. So that's what I started out with for the sky. Now, when you are working with the sky, you'll notice that this color is a little bit more brighter than this color. So what we're doing is we're basically using the white towards the bottom and then just blending it in. And then coming back in with some violet to darken it up a little bit of blue, but not too much, because as you can see in this painting, you really can't see too much of that Pithania blue. Maybe a little bit in this area, but it's mostly violet, if anything. But it's your sky, so if you want to make it more bluer, then go for it. Personally, that's what I wanted to do, but that's not what turned it out. And I actually still like it the way it is, the purple sky. So after that, I wanted to keep blending it in a way where the white didn't get too mixed up on top, so you still had some dark up there. So I just played around. I got the regular flat tip 1.5, 3, 38.1 millimeter flat brush, and just did the same thing. And then that got a little bit wet with the paint, so I moved on with this makeup brush, and I just did that as well. So that's what I did first for the sky. Let the sky sit for a moment, and then I came in with a toothbrush and white paint. And what I did is just put a little bit of white paint and just sprinkled it around to give some stars. So after I was done with that, I got a number 2 thin tip brush, and I just drew the moon. At first it was a little light, so I had to come back in later because the paint was too wet, so it just kept blending in. So I was like, I'll come back to that later. So while I was doing that, waiting for that to happen, I got a fan brush and mixed some water with it with white paint. And what that does, it just gives it a lighter, it's almost like a faint white. And then I came back in with a just regular white paint, and I darkened up where the clouds would be, and then the ones that would be drifting away would be the white paint mixed with water. And really with this technique, I'm using the fan brush and I'm just going sway, and I'm just swaying in the way where the clouds would be. So that's what we did with that. And then that was done, and then I started working on the waterfall. Now the waterfall was tricky because I'm trying to find the right color to balance all this out. Still, it doesn't quite balance it out as I wanted it to. I probably should have made the sky more blue to kind of go with all this. But it didn't come out that way. It's purple, and that's okay. It gives it its own little unique look, and it looks very fantasy, and I like it. That's kind of what I was trying to go for. But so with the waterfall, I started out with Pythannial blue, and I just basically painted it with I would say I started out with a number 14 flat tip brush. Really any size flat tip brush would work. And all I just did is first I painted out where I would like my waterfall to be. So I started out with the top, and then I kind of outlined where I would want the little lake would be, and then another drop off to another waterfall, and then where it would have another little pond or lake at the bottom. So I did that first, and then I came back in with a violet to darken it up a little bit, because I thought to myself, well, it's a moonlight waterfall painting, so really the water should be dark, that the sun is not out. But it kind of got brightened up a little bit with all my little flowers. That's okay, because it's fantasy, so that's fine. So I add a little bit of violet to it, and then after that I let's see, came back in with the violet, I'm sorry, and then I came back in with a pale blue. Pale blue came out a little bit darker, so I just kept blending it, and it kind of gave its own little streaks with all those colors, and it looked really nice. And I let that sit. didn't want to touch it anymore because, you know, when you see that, you see all those nice streaks, you don't want to be messing around with it too much. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to leave it that way because we don't want to be messing around with it too much. And then, so the next part I was working on was my land. So I also used a different brush, very similar to this, dry, because I wanted it to be more apart and more like leaves are spread apart and not clumped all together. For that I used black paint. Of course I'm going to show you as I'm going along on all the paints I'm using. Black paint. And I kind of blended it, not really blended it in, but like leave enough paint where you get some drops of forest, evergreen, and black. So that's what I did with that, and just had it spaced apart. I just did dabbings like that in various places until I got a nice solid background, and then some areas were lighter than others, and that's what you want because you want that shading. And you just let that sit for a moment, and then I believe I think I went back in with the Waterfall with white paint, and I just took a flat tip brush at that moment with white paint and just started making a little waterfall, and then taking more white paint and just, I think I did this part towards the end. But you'll see as I go along. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of, you don't see me in the painting because I have my camera facing a different way, and I'm using a different type of easel this time. I'm using a smaller one. This one is actually my favorite. This easel is the one I started out with when I first started painting, and it's just very small and you can take it anywhere. This one's big, I like it, but this one is really good just to be able to be more at your level when you're sitting at the desk. This is a little bit more higher up. I'm sure there's a way to adjust it, but I like this one. I don't really use it that much, but I'm going to try to use it more often. So came back in with the Waterfall with white paint, and then I let that sit, and then I came back in with a sour apple for my lighter green leaves. Same technique with the thicker brush, but I used a different one because, like I was telling you before, once it gets wet, it doesn't do that fanny look that you want your leaves to be displayed differently, not so close together. And when the brush is wet, it tends to be more like this, you know? So it doesn't give it that. So I use a different brush, but if you want, you just keep using the same one and just drying it, maybe giving some breaks in between so that it can do that same thing you're looking for. So I used the light green, and then I started working on my trees at top. Same thing as I did before with the land. Black paint with the evergreen in the trees. Just dabbed it in a way where I want my leaves to kind of be displaying itself. And then after that, this is more of kind of filling everything in because it started getting its placement. Everything had its place, so I just had to kind of lift it up a little bit. And there's really not much to do with that because we put in the land, we did the waterfall, we did the sky. The rest is just quick little uplifters to bring the picture alive. And it's very easy techniques that I used. So for little flowers, this brush, it kind of falls apart a little bit. I don't know if you have a brush like that yourself. What I did is I used the end of this brush for my little white flowers, and then same thing with my orange flowers. If I wanted it to be a little bit thicker, which I did in this painting. I just looked around for, let's see if I can find this. This is a number 4, and it looks like a flat tip brush. But I just kind of like dabbed it in a way where it gave its space. And the color paint I was using was an orange for those flowers. And in yellow, it was, I'm sorry, everything's all over the place. I'm a mess. I used a bright yellow for the yellow. And for the red, I did add some red flowers, but I kind of mixed it with the yellow and the orange in some places, so it kind of looks like it's not one solid color. Like some of the leaves are have aged, and you know how flowers are, like they're not all the same color. So that's what I was just trying to do with that. I used Chrisman for that. Mixed it with the bright yellow, a little bit of orange, just to add a little different shades to the flowers, because like I was telling you, not all flowers are exactly the same. Some are lighter than others, and some are got different pigmentations than others, so that's all I was trying to do there. And then I have like these little lavenders. Now, I don't know if lavender is something you would see at a waterfall, but this is fantasy. So what I did is I took my fan brush, and it doesn't matter what size, you can use the bigger fan brush or the smaller one. Put some violet on it, did a little dab in, and then I add a little bit of white paint just to give it some highlights. And then for these little, I don't know what these are called. Like, when you go to a lake and there's like these little, like, I want to say wheat. They're not wheat. Well, I used just a regular Ethan tip brush for that, and then yellow, bright yellow, and then just dabbed it just to give it that look. But you see what I mean. I'm sorry. I'm like tired. I get like that at the end of the day, and I have a hard time trying to, say what I'm trying to say sometimes. But don't worry, because the video is pretty self-explanatory. I'll show you those little techniques. I'm just going over the paints and the brushes I used. You'll be able to figure what I'm trying to say as time goes on, and you'll enjoy yourself as well. So we did that, and then towards the bottom, I came back in with the trees just to lighten it up a little bit. I probably add a little bit of water with white paint just to give it some highlight. But I didn't do too much because I didn't want it to overdo it. And then I kind of mixed the yellow and the red together just to kind of make it look like there's some fall leaves in that area of the tree. Same thing for up top here. And then I believe I came back in with the the moon with white paint. I used number 2 thin tip brush just to go over that, one more time. And then towards the bottom of the painting, used the fan brush, and I started off with well, first I made my male deer in the background. Used black paint, a thin tip brush, I think it was number 1, and I just wanted to get that done in that area. I do believe I was trying to make 2 of them, but one just stood out the most, so I kept it just the 1. But if you can make the 2 stand out, that's awesome. Go for it, because that's what I was trying to do. Like 2 little love deers looking into the pond, and one was drinking and the other one was like looking out to the distance. That's what I was trying to go for, but it didn't quite come out that way, but that's okay. So I took some black paint and I just made some long grass, and then I did the same thing with the evergreen paint. So basically just doing highlights of the grass, and then with light with the bright yellow and orange, same thing. So you can see like the different shades at the bottom. And for the stem of the tree, I did that first before I filled in this area. I'm sorry, I kind of jumped over. I just used a number 1 and tip brush just to do the trees, and really it came out really nice, and I really hope you enjoy your time. I'm sorry I'm a little all over the place, and maybe I'm not explaining things the greatest right now, I'm sorry. But you're gonna have a blast doing this, and if you need to take frequent breaks, if you need to pause the video if I'm going too fast, you know, by all means do it. And I hope you enjoy this video, and if I have plenty more just like this one, feel free to watch them. I also have an Etsy shop, Zen Arts of Paint. This should be available. I also have other ones just like this. Free shipping. My paintings are usually around $25, $30. I keep them pretty cheap, you know, pretty affordable for everyone. So feel free, if you like this one particularly and you're having trouble doing it yourself, feel free. You can always message me, and I can always try to recreate it and be able to give it to you. So if you like this one and you want more paintings like this one, please hit like, comment, subscribe to the channel so I know you're interested and I can continue to teach you, and can all grow together in learning how to paint. Beginner painter. I started about a year ago, and look at what I've created in that process. So you can also see many more of what I've created in the process. I have all the videos down below, and I hope to see you next time.